What's going on, YouTube? Here we are back with another episode. Excuse me, sorry. What's going on, YouTube? Here we are back with another episode. Um, Coming to you live from Denver. I'm on my vacation, so having a good time out here. Um, let's get right into it. I'm recording this episode December 26th after Christmas. First and foremost, happy holidays to everyone. For whoever watches this. Hopefully, this time of year is a little precious to you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. And thank you for listening, obviously, as well. First, we're going to just start off by let's talk about the big game that everyone I feel like is talking about in the sports world right now. And that is the Baltimore Ravens going into San Francisco, battle of the one seeds, and Baltimore handing it to San Fran. And let me tell you, I watched the game, and as you guys know, I pretty much I feel like I watch all the games that I go in depth and talk about. And let me tell you, I did not expect Baltimore to do what they did to San Francisco. I, without question, did not I'm about to look up the stats right now. It's unreal. Wow, it was a real Christmas treat, you could say, honestly, to be able to watch that. And to be blessed with football on Christmas is always a great thing, and to see a great game like that to cap it off, or at least a game with as much hype around it, even though one could always, there's always going to be people that say this game did not live up to the hype. Let me tell you something. If you're a Baltimore fan, this game lived up to the hype, man. And let me tell you, it was something different, and it was something that was unexpected because the San Francisco 49ers, since their bye week, they have been on a tear, winning they were averaging about 34 points per game, winning each game by a margin of 2+ touchdowns for the most part. And whew, and just I don't it's hard to put it into words when you see how the San Francisco 49ers have been dominant since their bye week. They haven't lost a game since their bye week, and when they were coming off that 3-game losing streak that they had. And though the bye weeks are just so much time to get healthy and get right in, the way how San Fran was playing, you did not expect them to lose. Not one bit. I don't I mean, Baltimore, they were 5-point underdogs, and when you're 5-point underdogs, I was able to watch a couple of the shows throughout the week before leading up to the game, and these scores. And sorry, I'm also trying to look up the scores and everything, but when you're 5-point underdogs and you feel like you're the best team in the league, what you have to do, you have to come out and make a statement. And what a funky start it was to the game as well. I don't know if you guys watched it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to see that clip of the referee that trips Lamar in the back of the end zone, causing it wasn't the referee's fault. I mean, it was the referee's fault because he was backpedaling. He was trying to get out of the way of the play. But to see that safety happen and then just say, okay, that was the best thing that happened to the 49ers that game. Ever since that point, it was literally 5-0. And from that point on, Baltimore said, let's flip that damn switch, man. And Baltimore, they came out, whether it was being able to manipulate the run against the San Francisco 49ers defense. And what I love what Baltimore did is that when you establish a run game against a team like the 49ers that has a great linebacking core, you get those linebackers to bite down, and now you can attack the middle of the field, honestly. When you get the linebackers to just commit to the run the way that they were able to get Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, when you're able to get them to commit to the run and that 4-man pass rush as well, man, it opens up everything. And to me, it felt like each of their touchdowns was very much each of their passing touchdowns or any big passing play that you seen Lamar Jackson make was without a doubt. It was just being able to manipulate San Fran's defense. And San Fran has the one of the top tier defenses. But let me tell you, Baltimore shows you why they are the best defense. Kyle Hamilton gets 2 great interceptions. The first interception, it just, sometimes like some DBs are able to just hide in coverage. I don't see how a 6'4" dude in Kyle Hamilton can just hide in coverage and then just come out of nowhere and pick off the pass. It was like a cover 6 zone. Like he had the deep half of the field, even though it wasn't deep half because it was in the red zone. Just trust one of your best players on defense to make a play like that. Boom. Gets Brock Purdy look like he's trying to attack the middle of the field between 2 of the zones, a deep quarter and I think you could call it like a deep inside quarter and a deep half, because he didn't see where Kyle Hamilton went. He probably thought Kyle Hamilton was dropping down to the flat. Throws it right into where Kyle Hamilton baited him to throw that ball. And from that point on, you have Kyle Hamilton. He had the greatest hustle play of the year, I think, in terms of on defense, where he gets pancaked to the ground or he gets chop blocked. He's falling on the ground. Offensive lineman lands on top of him. He gets up. A pass is deflected. He comes down. He grabs that interception. What a great game by Kyle Hamilton. I don't know if he is in... I don't think that he was in Defensive Player of the Year discussion, but let's put him up there, man, because he's been having a great year and making tackles all over the place. Kyle Hamilton, great game. And then the craziest part is that he left the game in like the middle of the third quarter and didn't play the rest of the game, but his impact on the game lived large, honestly. And speaking of Baltimore's defense, picking off the Niners 5 times. They picked off Brock Purdy 4 times. Then Sam Darnold comes in the game, trying to make a big-time play down the field after Baltimore got stopped on the 3-and-out. And he throws another pick. 5 interceptions. No pick sixes, but 5 interceptions on the day for the Baltimore defense. Who's the best defense in the league is basically what Baltimore said. It's us. And it's so many things to take away from a game like that. Lamar Jackson, he played a phenomenal game. Not that he threw for like 5 touchdowns and like 400 yards or anything like that. Nah, he didn't have one of those games. But he had a game where he did everything that he did what he needed to do to win the game. And it's not like to go into the game manager discussion or anything like that. But it was very much a game that Lamar Jackson said, okay, I'm not going to make any mistakes this game, and I'm just going to make sure I make winning plays all over the field. And he didn't, I think Lamar only took took 2 sacks on the night, and he took like 2 sacks in the way how he was just able to control the pocket, honestly. And I was watching the game, and something that caught my eye was basically that, Lamar, he was able to just, when you have enough confidence in your offensive line, you can almost move however the hell you want them. Like, you move so freely in it. And San Francisco has probably the best pass rush in the league with 3 all-pros, essentially, like Chase Young, Hargrave, Nick Bosa, obviously. He's the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. And then they also have, the exchange of defensive linemen where they can throw in Eric Armstead, who's 6'7", Drake Jackson, who is 6'5". You have Randy Gregory is still on this team. You can throw him in, like, the balance of being able to filter out every defensive lineman, and all of them are able to make plays. Not yesterday. In Baltimore, it doesn't have the greatest offensive line, but when your quarterback has that much confidence, he just says, I don't know what the hell he says to his offensive line. He just says, just hang in there for me, man. Just hang in there for me, baby. Like, I'm gonna make a play. And he was just able to just sit in the pocket, just move his feet around, amazing footwork, amazing pocket presence against a team like 49ers, where so many quarterbacks typically panic when they when the pocket seems like it's collapsing or when they are surrounded in the pocket. Lamar Jackson did not flinch at all, and it's amazing to see that in a game with so much hype around it, but just it's about the hype, but it's also about like the cachet of it, you could say, where these are two of the best teams in the league and probably the two best teams in the league. And Lamar was just able to keep composed and just make plays. He was able to establish the run game and just make plays all over. It was just something beautiful. Lamar Jackson last night says, is my MVP, my bid to win MVP is right here. I took out the best team in the other conference. We're the best team in our conference, and I played as good of a game as you can play against the Niners team, because the Niners aren't going to allow you to throw for 5 touchdowns. And I think some people, they don't get that, they don't have that idea in their head, essentially, that, you know, Baltimore, who has a tough schedule every year, it feels like they don't really never have an easy schedule. But when you have teams like that, you know, when you play against teams like the Niners, you're not going to throw for 5 touchdowns. It's so rare. Like, I think, let me look at the stats real quick. Like, Lamar had thrown for 2 touchdowns yesterday. You know what I mean? But he was 23 for 35 in the game. Against the 49ers, that's a great game, man. Like, the 49ers have a great defense. What did Lamar do? He sliced and diced the defense, and that's all you can ask for him to do. And he took advantage of great field position when the Niners gave that to him by turning the ball over, and then he also just scored the ball. Made sure that it felt, I think that the Ravens only punted once, and it was in the fourth quarter. No, they punted twice to start. Once to start the game and one to end the game. That's a great game. Like, even if you're just getting field goals, they add up against the 49ers. If the 49ers are not scoring along with you, any point matter. Any and all points matter. And that's what it was, honestly. You know, you had CMC, who played a great game, 14 carries, 100 plus yards, 1 tutty, but you know, the 49ers just, the 49ers could not play their game yesterday because Baltimore's defense didn't allow them to. And it's something that we have to talk about. And, you know, we're kind of like, we're on the way to playing, we're so close to the playoffs now. And we're 3 weeks away from the playoffs. And it looks like these two teams are very much going to end up being in the Super Bowl. I mean, anything can happen. Like, that's one thing. Anything can happen against the again in the playoffs. Like, you know, some teams perform, most teams don't. It's truly incredible to think about that this was a potential Super Bowl match preview and one team just dominated. It's crazy to think about, but it was a great game. I hope everybody watched it. I know I watched it. And, you know, yesterday I'm in Denver. I went to the Nuggets game, and I couldn't wait to get back to my hotel room and everything and just say, all right, I'm going to watch this Ravens and 49ers game. I'm going to watch it. And I'm pretty sure everybody who watches this might be a football fan, or they might not be, but that kind of game is great for the NFL. And the NFL, the script writers, whatever the hell they call them, the schedule makers, that was the greatest Christmas gift you could give us. I don't know if they planned on both Baltimore and San Fran being the #1 seeds, but it lived up to the hype, in my opinion, because whenever you have a matchup like that, you just want to see which team comes to play and which team doesn't, or at least if both teams come to play. You just want a team to be able to play that game. You don't want to see a game where no team is on their A game. Baltimore was on their A game. And you gotta just live with that, you know. Sorry, my arms hurt. I did an arm day yesterday, so my bad. Arms are just killing me. You know, and then, like, let's just even go back to I mean, to get away from that game, I think that game was, it says a lot. It just says a lot. That's all I can even tell you. Some other big games from the weekend, from Christmas weekend, Eagles and Giants. The Eagles are an area of concern. They were dominant in the first half yesterday, but it's that Eagles defense is not on good track, and I didn't even realize it, but they have Matt Patricia calling the defensive plays. What? Why? Why? I'm struggling to understand that, only because of the fact that obviously, we all know that Philadelphia lost their two coordinators this past offseason when they landed head coaching jobs. And I don't know, man. I feel like Philly's defense the first the first 2/3 of the season was really good, actually. They only had lost one game, which was to the Jets, in what was probably the most questionable loss of the year. But obviously, Philadelphia, one thing I will say is that, they had the meltdowns against. Well, did they have a meltdown defensively against the Cowboys and the 49ers? Not really. I can't say that they had meltdowns against them, but I can say that their defense didn't perform up to standard. But to make an in-season coordinator adjustment like that, when Philadelphia at the time, they had only lost 2 straight games, which was against the 49ers and then Dallas back-to-back weeks. It was the 49ers and Dallas back-to-back weeks. And they made that, I didn't realize it at the time, but they made that coordinator position change. My bigger question is, why make that change, honestly? And because when you're playing the first couple games of the season, you only have one loss, and you beat a couple good teams. You beat a lot of good teams, actually. They beat Miami. They beat Miami defensively. You know what I mean? It wasn't a shootout. They beat Kansas City defensively. It wasn't a shootout. One could argue that they didn't beat Buffalo defensively, but they still beat Buffalo. And those are my things. Why is that even why even make that change? That's my bigger question. I wouldn't make that change if I'm the Eagles GM or whatever, unless if there was a conduct or a violation of some sort with their defense coordinator that they had. But there was no indication that told me, hey, Philadelphia needs to make a defensive coordinator switch. They didn't need to. And with all honesty, and when you throw a new game plan in like that with a new coordinator, it's a struggle. It is a struggle for all the players to catch on to. And I think that that's showing itself because Philadelphia, they're coming off losing 3 straight. And they go against the Giants. They're dominant the first half, but then New York is crawling their way back in the game. The New York Giants that have only won 4 or 5 games this year, I think they have 6 wins or something. I don't know. Well, 4 or 5 wins, man. What? Hold on, let me see. Yeah, the Giants have only won 5 games, and New York showed life in the second half. What? No, that shouldn't happen. And I guess that's my question is why make that defense coordinator switch? There's no need for it. And I don't know. I'm one of those kind of football fans where it's if something ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you face off against 2 of the better teams in the league. Just because you gave up some points to them doesn't mean that the defense is some shit, essentially. How about maybe the defense is just tired after going against top tier competition for 6 straight weeks? That's what I think, at least. Philadelphia squeezed the game out, and the offense looked good, but the defense is just bad, and it's is that going to carry on to the playoffs? I don't know. It looks like it will, though. Kansas City losing to the Raiders. It's a big deal, but it's not to me. I was watching some shows this week because you guys know I watch a lot of sports shows and shit. And the best way that I can put it is that I'm not freaking out about it because Kansas City hasn't played top tier all year, but it's also any divisional game is always a tough one, and that's what the Raiders versus the Chiefs are. It's a rivalry game. It's a divisional rivalry game of teams that want to win it badly, and the Raiders. I don't think they're not out of the playoff race yet, but it's games like that where they kind of catch up to you. Now, I said this earlier in the year, but we have to really begin to question why the hell is Kessie often struggling. And I said it earlier, and it's because Eric Bieniemy is there. Eric Bieniemy had this thing about getting every player ready for Kansas City. It's as simple as that. It was getting everybody ready, and it seems like every year, every game this year, it feels like, because the Chiefs have not dominated a game this year yet. Unlike their offense has not dominated a game. I don't even know if the Chiefs even put up 40 points this year. The Chiefs put up like 40. I think they put up 40 points once, and that was against the Bears. Like the Chiefs usually put up like 4 or 5 40-point games in a year. Especially since Patrick Mahomes been there. What the hell is really going on? They don't have the same offensive coordinator staff without Eric Bieniemy. And like they tried to run a trick play. Let me tell you something. There are just so many of Kansas City's trick plays over the years. A lot of them have come against the Raiders. There are times where the play has worked or it hasn't worked, but based off of sometimes a penalty or something. Usually that's what it's been in the past. But now, like, I saw them fumble. Like, it was just a terrible play call. Like, I just feel like the defense, I feel like it wasn't really scouted against that defense. You know what I mean? Like, and it was a very odd, trick play, and it led to a turnover, a fumble. And that's like another thing. Kansas City doesn't usually their trick plays are either they work to perfection or it's called back because of a penalty. Shit's rare, man. Shit is rare. People, I'm not gonna question Patrick Mahomes. They're still gonna be in the playoffs. And that's always gonna be a question. Who the hell is gonna beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs? Not many have done it. I think the only people that have beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs so far are Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. Like, seriously, like, that is the tear that they have been on. Jalen Hurts came close last year. I can't remember what other quarterbacks have outdueled Patrick Mahomes, and maybe this year might be the year because there's one quarterback that has always performed against Patrick Mahomes, and it's Lamar Jackson. But Josh Allen performs against him too. It all depends on how the playoffs match up. At the moment, if the playoffs were to start today, Buffalo would be going to Kansas City, but something tells me Buffalo is going to be the number 2 seed. Like, they're going to claim the AFC East crown, and we can get into that later. We can actually get into it right now because I'm not going to look at no damn Patriots and Broncos game. I'm sorry. I'm not going to look at that game. But let's talk about it right now. The Dolphins beat the Cowboys. It's one of the first teams that they were able to beat over 500, it feels like the Dolphins were. And the Cowboys lose another game on the road. Before I go into the Cowboys, I'm just going to talk about the Dolphins and their playoff predicament. And they're in trouble, man. This wasn't a perfect game. I know Tyreek Hill was coming off of his injury, and then Jalen Waddle goes out during that game with this high ankle sprain. Let me just tell you, man. Baltimore is hosting Miami next week on Sunday. And if Miami doesn't win this game against Baltimore, which likely is not going to happen because of how Baltimore has been playing since. Oh, Baltimore has been playing amazing for the past like 5, 6 weeks. It feels like. Ooh, excuse me. Sorry about that. But Baltimore's been playing for the past great for the past 6, 7, 8 weeks. It feels like, you know what I mean. And Miami is in a bad spot because of this. Miami has held control over the AFC East this entire year. Buffalo has been on a tear as of late, and one thing we've seen in the past is that when a team gets hot, a team can really make moves. And right now, at the moment, Buffalo is 2 games out of the division title for in the AFC East, and the reason why they're 2 games back is because I think they beat Baltimore. I mean, they beat the Miami Dolphins once already, but also because Miami hasn't really beat any great teams so far. I mean, they beat the Cowboys, which is good for them, but now they face their toughest test in this next 2 weeks, where if they don't beat Baltimore, which is likely to happen, Buffalo comes down to Miami, and that game will probably if if Miami loses this game upcoming to Baltimore, we're going to see the NFL flex the game of the Miami Dolphins hosting the Buffalo Bills to the Sunday night, the regular season finale game, and that game is going to be for the AFC East title crown. And let me tell you something. If because Buffalo, they play New England this week. You think Buffalo's not going to beat New England? Man, like, New England plays good, but Buffalo, they know how much they want this 2 seed because they want to be able to hold control until they have to go to Baltimore potentially for an AFC Championship game. But if that game, if that happens with Miami and they lose against Baltimore, Buffalo is going to probably go into Miami and win that game because Buffalo has been playing as good of football as anybody in the NFL over the past 2 months, you could say almost. And then Miami, I think, turns into the 5th seed where maybe that makes them have an easier path. Maybe I don't know for sure, but it's teams that you don't want to see. These are teams that you don't want to see, honestly. And it's one of those games where you don't want to get to that point. But I mean, shout out to Miami for beating the Cowboys, and because they needed that game to have some kind of momentum go against Baltimore. Because Baltimore is not a get right game. No, Baltimore is a game where you need to bring your A game because Baltimore is going to bring theirs. So it's a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it this weekend. To get into the Cowboys, I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, come on, man. I mean, the Cowboys are in this position where they can potentially the 1 seed. That's done. I think that's done because they don't hold a tiebreaker over the Cowboys don't hold the tiebreaker over don't have a tiebreaker over the 49ers. My apologies, my brain kind of just spaced out, but you don't hold that tiebreaker, and it's unfortunate. And the highest seed you can get is the 2 seed, and where you have an advantage against Philadelphia, kind of in a sense, it's not, you can't afford to lose games. And now the Cowboys, they host a Lions team that may be feeling themselves a lot, but still is a dangerous team. And one thing that the Cowboys need to fix if they want to make a run in the playoffs, they need to be able to defend the run. And let me tell you, all the teams that they have lost to are teams that know how to run the fucking ball. And if you can't stop the run, let me tell you, you're in a bad spot because Detroit can run the ball against you, and Detroit knows how to manipulate the middle of the field. And I was just thinking about this, sometimes I'll be watching a sports show and I'm like, man, these things make sense. But one thing that the Cowboys struggle with is defending the run, but defending the middle of the field. And when you go and looking at some of the Cowboys' losses so far this season that they've had, some of these teams, they establish the run and then they start hitting the middle of the field. Because what ends up happening when you establish the run game so much, especially when a team knows you're going to run, the middle of the field opens up because you bring those linebackers, those sub linebackers down, but you're also telling your safeties, hey, stay up top in case of a big play with this play action goes over the top of your head. But most of these NFL teams that are high-powered offensively, they like to say, okay, we know that if we establish run, your linebackers are going to get aggressive. Okay, cool. And we know that you are always going to do your best to take away the deep half of the field. I mean, the deep part of the field. Okay, cool beans. We're going to attack you right in your weakest point, which is the middle of the field. And we're going to make it even weaker by establishing the run, bringing your linebackers down. So now, the middle of the field is wide open. And for any offensive guru, one thing you could always say is that, hey, I'm going to run a route combo of a post or a skinny post and a crossing route. Essentially, I'm going to push that safety. I'm going to push the deep zones, especially if you run zone coverage. We're gonna push those guys all the way back and get 10, 15, 20 yards every play, or every money down play, essentially. That's what the 49ers do. That is what the Eagles have the potential to do. That is what Miami did. And that is what I think the other team that can do that, essentially to the greatest ability, maybe in the NFC. Well, I mean, some teams, they're not really in the playoff picture. But Detroit can do it. San Fran, Philly, and Miami just did it. Whenever the Cowboys lose, it's always because it's never to something like fluky, or it's not to a shootout. Essentially, it's always because they are being dominated in one area of the game on defense, essentially, and that's what Miami exposed. And the Cardinals did it to them early in the year too. When the Cardinals, or when any team that is under any team that's under 5 wins, essentially, any team that's under 5 wins, whenever they beat let's just say a top 7 team, whenever one of those teams beat a top 7 team in the NFL, that means that there is some weakness that was exposed. It's usually not to something fluky. It's not to a shootout or something. Like, no, it's because a weakness was exposed in that team. And so ever since then, every team that has beat the Cowboys has taken a recipe from the Arizona Cardinals. And the thing is about Dallas, what I don't understand for the most part is you have to make in-season changes whenever something like that is consistently happening to you. Why not make them? Like, I don't know if there's like a practice squad player you can bring up, or somebody that's on the free agent wire. You have to make a change, honestly, man, because it's unacceptable to keep on losing games due to a high-powered run game. It's unacceptable, and it's something that Dallas has to work on, essentially, because Dallas looks like they're going to play against the Buccaneers, and maybe the Buccaneers don't have a heavy run kind of offense, but one thing that the Buccaneers can do is pass the ball to every part of the field, and that's what Baker Mayfield has been doing by having the established wide receiver core of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Then he'll hit his tight end Cade Otton on something. Like, there's just so many things. And another thing too is that even in the games that they've won, like Seattle did that to them by making them say, hey, we're going to start taking these 10-yard pass attempts, 10-yard passes, and turn them into 30, 40 yards. That's what Seattle did, and that's why that game was such a good game for Dallas. But it's a lot of things that you need to fix, man, and I don't know if Dallas can do that because you would have had to make a trade for or sign a top tier guy already by the free agent deadline or something. It's an issue that I like to say Dallas didn't pay attention to, and now it's coming to bite them in the ass. Because now you start facing these teams down the line that say, okay, we're going to run the ball because it's also cold outside, for some of these teams and everything. So Dallas, it's not even upset alert. Dallas is on red alert though, because if there's a team that can run the ball, it's the Detroit Lions. So they need to be careful. What other games? I don't think that Detroit has just won their division on us. They won it on Sunday, the first division title in 30 years. So, you're happy for them as well. You love to see that for them. Not really too many other games that had like a lot of implications on. Cleveland has been playing phenomenal. They pretty much have locked up the 5th seed, which is pretty good. I saw it was like this Instagram post that said that Cleveland can still become the 1 seed. It's very rare because you need so many teams to lose this late in the season. Unless you play those teams, I don't see that happening, honestly. But one thing I do want to talk about is definitely the playoff picture. At this moment, you have I want to focus more so on the wild card spots, honestly. Pretty much, I think that maybe there might be a shakeup where the Lions can be the 2 seed if Philly loses another game. And if Detroit wins out, in their next 2 games, they have a date with the Cowboys, and then they have a date with, I think, against the Vikings for the second time, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Because they played the Bears twice, and the Packers played the Bears the last game of the season at Lambeau. So yeah, they played I think they played the Vikings last game of the season. If they went out and Philly loses one more game or something, that can always happen, honestly. That might be the only shakeup, I think, honestly. Besides that, let's get into these wild card spots for real. Dallas, in the NFC, Dallas at 5. I think that's enough said, but let me tell you, man, the Rams and the Seahawks, they're playing some phenomenal football right now. They are playing phenomenal. The Rams, they whooped up on the Saints on Thursday. It was a closer game than the box. It was a different game than what the box score says, because you could just say that the Saints lost by 8 points. Los Angeles had a grasp of that game for the entire game, essentially. And Matthew Stafford is playing phenomenal. Their Puka Nacua playing phenomenal. Cooper Kupp is still Cooper Kupp at the end of the day. Excuse me. I think they still have Tyler Higbee. Their run game with what's that guy's name? I'm so sorry. What's Kyron Williams? He's running the ball pretty good, and it's scary, man. Right now the playoff picture says that the Rams are going to be going into Detroit, And I think that's just what you could call poetry in motion. I saw that in an Instagram caption because that's Matt Stafford returning back to Detroit for a playoff game, and the Lions don't want to see Detroit. I mean, the Lions are a good team, don't get me wrong, but if the Rams are playing this red hot, oh Lord, I don't think they want to see them. And then you also have Seattle that looks like they're going to be going into Philly. And if Philly doesn't fix their pass defense problem, that might be all she wrote, because the way how Geno Smith plays, he's only looking to dice up the defense, man. He's looking to he has three wide receivers that are great wide receivers in DK, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba caught a game-winning touchdown against the Eagles last week. Like, come on, like, the Seahawks are nothing to play with either. They're nothing to sneeze at. So it's like these teams, if these top teams don't fix their flaws, man, it's they're in for one, man. And then you kind of look at the AFC side. Fucking Cleveland, they're in the 5th spot. I think they've only lost 5 games on the year. Yeah, they're 10-5. And it looks very much like they're going to stay the 5th seed. And then guess who they play? They get to play whoever wins the AFC South. That's going to be the way how Jacksonville has not been playing good. I think that since that game against the 49ers that happened like 4 or 5 weeks ago, probably like 6 weeks ago at this point. Ever since that game, I think that it's the Niners they exposed them. And when you get exposed in the National Football League, other teams pick up on how to beat you, and that is what it feels like has happened with every team so far. That because the Jags are on a 4-game losing streak, and in every game they have just been punished on the defensive side of the opposing defense has punished their offense, just like how the Niners did, and they have not been able to recover. I think they had one game where the next game after that they won, and then they've just lost every game since. And if you don't fix those errors, Cleveland playing with Joe Flacco, Joe Flacco playing with house money right now, man. I mean, he has a wide receiver one, a tight end one, and then an offensive line that can protect him. Joe Flacco is operating that, man. He's playing with house money, man. There's not a thing in the world that he feel like he is worried about. He just has to come up. He just has to walk into the game and just ball and just play football, because he has that wide receiver one who for some reason there is no team that wants to double team Amari Cooper. What in the hell is going on? Why are you not double teaming Amari Cooper, who has over 200 yards? He ends the game with 265. What? Amari Cooper Amari Cooper, ladies and gentlemen, this man has had 200 plus receiver yards with 3 different teams. Before last Sunday, he's had a game of 200 plus yards before, twice. If Amari Cooper is heating up, why is he not getting double teamed? Why is there not a safety you're dropping that safety down on him or something? Or you have what I like to, I also play Madden too. And when I see a player that is because I play Madden online and everything, and sometimes some people that play video games, they have like their go-to players or some shit that they always target. One thing, and I'm not saying that, if I'm an NFL coach, I think I'll call a better game than that sometimes, or defense, or whatever the hell it is. And I know it's hard to do in real time, but what I do is that, at least like if in my Madden scenario, this might not want me to talk about video games on here, but in my Madden scenario, what I do is that I run zone defense, and I either put a slot corner or a linebacker that's just going to track whoever their number one guy is, and then have zone defense kind of take care of the rest of the players on the field, essentially. Double team Amari Cooper by putting, if you can run zone and then have him manned up. The only person that's manned up is Amari Cooper. The rest of it's zone. That's how you take away that number one option. And maybe you don't do it every play, but you do it when that person's starting hot. The minute that Amari Cooper had 170 yards, double team, or I'm ISOing him. Like, come on, man. But nonetheless, the Cleveland Browns are playing amazing football right now. Their defense has been balling all year. Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year candidate without question. I think he has like 17 sacks on the year. He's just wrecking the game, man. But nonetheless, if he's playing good, that means that they're playing good. Honestly, that's how it's been for Myles Garrett. If he's playing good, the Cleveland Browns are playing good. The 6th seed at the moment is the Buffalo Bills. I think that they're going to get to the 2 seed because of how the Miami Dolphins have schedule lines up for them. And then the 7th seed is the Indianapolis Colts. I'll say this: I am very, I'm so high on CJ Stroud. He played so good to start the year. I am looking that if he can somehow, some way pull out if he comes back, because he's been in concussion protocol, or he's been out with a concussion for the past 2 weeks, and really 3 weeks, because he got knocked out of the game that he obviously got the concussion in against the Jets. If he comes back and he wins 2 games, if he comes back and he wins these next 2 games, and Indianapolis drops 1 game because they're tied at the moment. They're tied at the moment at 8-7, and I think Indianapolis holds the tiebreaker over them. But if they come back in, if CJ Stroud comes back into the game and he picks up where he left off, there's a good chance that he can get into that 7th seed, and that would alone let him win Offensive Year. It's been a lock for CJ Stroud for most of the year, but then when you get injured and there's somebody else that's been pretty consistent throughout the year, and Puka Nacua, it's a battle at that point, no question. But if he comes in, he wins the next 2 games, and Indianapolis drops a game. And I think that they play Indianapolis one of these games. I think Indianapolis just has the tiebreaker because they won 1 game against them. But if Houston comes in, they win the game, they get to the 7th seed, then they would be playing potentially Buffalo. That I think, because I think that the Dolphins can drop to the 6th seed unless if I'm looking at this right. Yeah. So the Dolphins could drop if they lose their next 2 games, which I think is a high pot. To me, with all honesty, I think it's an 85% chance Baltimore beats the Dolphins, and Buffalo beats the Dolphins. So then that would drop the Dolphins into the 6th seed, and then they would be going to Kansas City instead of Buffalo going to Kansas City at the current moment. So it's crazy to think about, honestly. So, man, but then that would make so let's say this works itself out. Houston will be going into Buffalo, which probably Buffalo would probably win that game. I think that we can all say that, because as good as CJ Stroud is, he doesn't have that experience in the playoffs. So maybe this is just like his water. Like this is a game where he tests the water potentially. I mean, if it happens, obviously. And then that would send Miami to Kansas City, and then that would send Cleveland to Jacksonville. But another thing to question too is that Jacksonville has not won this division yet. And let's say it. If Houston wins out, I think that, let's see where. Yeah, the Jaguars are 8-7 too, and I think that Houston holds a tiebreaker over them. Yeah, Houston could be the 4th seed, and then Jacksonville could be the 7th seed. It's a fair possibility. I mean, even the Colts can be the 4th seed. You know what I mean? Like, this is why you love the NFL, because during these last 3 weeks, man, it's some of the best football, but it's also some of the biggest leapfrogs and changes and everything. And it's always something that you always love to see at the end of the NFL season, because sometimes this is where they get the most viewership. Sometimes you never know. Nonetheless, I'm gonna leave you guys off on that. I'm gonna leave you guys off on this. I mean, my favorites for the Super Bowl are still the Niners and the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm having a hard time kind of going away from that. But this year, I mean, Buffalo can. One thing I've seen it in the past, and it reminds me of Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati came out of nowhere when they made their Super Bowl run, but if a team goes into the playoffs, because right now Buffalo is on a 3-game win streak. Buffalo could very much, to me, if they go in, sometimes it's to me, whichever team goes in, if there's a team that goes into the playoffs. It's 11 o'clock. Sorry about that. My computer does that. But any team that goes into the playoffs on a 6-game or more winning streak, I know Buffalo can't get that, but Baltimore has the capabilities of doing that. But Buffalo can come in on a 5-game win streak. They can make some noise, man. And I think that the AFC Championship is going to be Buffalo at Baltimore. And the NFC Championship, let me tell you this, I think is going to be Detroit at San Francisco. I think Detroit have this infectious energy for the entire team from their head coach. And they have everything in the world to play for, and they don't have nothing to lose, because this is going to be their first time in the playoffs. And I know it's like kind of a thing, like where first time in the playoffs, you don't know how people react, but we've seen teams first time in the playoffs in a few years go to Super Bowl, aka Cincinnati 2 years ago, aka Tampa Bay did it with Tom Brady. I'm not comparing Jared Goff to Tom Brady by no means, but these are possibilities. So it's just something to watch out for. Nonetheless, hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you guys for listening, and just, drop some comments. Let me know anything, man. But nonetheless, peace out. See you guys till next time. Peace and love. Have a great holiday season, guys.